Good morning, everybody. Rebellion Ranch with you. Getting some water out here for the girls, so I figured we'd take a minute and shoot a video. Been getting all kinds of great comments and questions. One of the questions from Ben recently was about culling. You know, after I culled a decent amount, would I go back and buy young nannies? And, you know, obviously that's going to affect the breeding rate, the reproduction rate, and everything else. And I don't know if there's one crystal clear answer. I can tell you what we're going to do is we're going to cull this starter herd, for lack of a better word. Probably, you could almost expect, if you were buying a large group like this, unknown, to eventually cull to 50%. Now that may take you a couple years to figure out who's not breeding right and everything else, but honestly, God's doing the hard part of the culling for us right now, because it is hard to determine up ahead of time. You know, there's lots of great systems out there with ear tags where you can, you know, cull them out. You can notch that ear tag for matcha, for, you know, runny stool, for hoof problems, lack of coat, you know, all kinds of things. And those are good systems to put in place. Probably a lot more profitable way to cull, quite honestly. But as I said recently, this isn't how you operate at scale. This is how we're making the transition from a crash landing and just doing the best that we can with it. So to actually answer the question, I think we're going to go through the rough culling on the adults. Going forward, we want to raise the number of goats that we have probably up to about 400 or 500 head. So I probably will bring in some young ewes, but our long-term, or does, whatever you want to call them, we're going to bring ewes in too, because we're going to do the same with the sheep. So that'll be a good comparison. I'll get into it in a second. We're going to bring that up, and then we want to close the goat herd and keep back does from the ones that are producing. And I also said before, and I've said many times, that we want a doe to produce 100% of her body weight. Obviously, that is going to be weighed against her peers. The first couple of years, you may not get many that are in there. That doesn't mean that we're going to cut everybody out. We're going to have that target number of, just for argument's sake, 500. And so if we have 10% more than that, if we have 50 does more than that, and everything else has been culled for bad hooves, etc., that means you'd have 50 that you want to get rid of, for instance. Then yes, I would use that reproduction rate then and cut it down. Now for the sheep, you know, we only have a few sheep right now, so we want to get that up to 500 as well, as we go forward, not all at once, thank God. But we'll probably, to do that, we're probably going to bring in a bunch of young ewes and just start there. And yes, the reproduction rate might be way down at 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, you know, but that's okay. Find out what your problems are, then you have the longevity left in that animal to see who your real winners are. And yes, it'll be a little slower process, but again, our big goal is to see who can make it in the system that we're running, and that's going to be different, you know, depending on what you're doing. But we're running a minimal input, minimal infrastructure system with maximum production. So you know it's going to be a little rougher cull rate for us than it might be for others. All right, cool. The military's flying overhead again today. Hope that answers the question. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. I didn't have notes to operate off of today, but Ben, you know, it's really your management decision. It's your management decision, you know, how you want to go forward. But I can say that nursing things along, I've done that in my first 5 years that had problems. Those problems are just going to persist, and then they're going to reproduce those problems. So even if you do have a lower reproduction rate and you do cull pretty hard, it's worth it up front. Now, that being said, you got to have the capital to survive all that, and that is one of the major difficulties. So, you know, you've got to factor that into your plan. I think all this talking is really stressing out old Thor here, that and the 54-degree heat wave today. So I'm going to get the rest of this water done and get out of here. You guys have a blessed day. May God just fill your hearts with joy, and I hope you get to enjoy some of this peace that I've got here.